Good morning, everyone. So I want to start by just briefly telling you a little bit about myself. I'm actually going to move this over. Only because I know many of you recognize your faces. Some of you I know personally. Some of you not so much personally. So I won't eat up too much of the time, but just to give you a little bit of my background. I was not raised in the church. I came to the church as an adult. Always felt like I had a personal relationship with God, even as a child. Many people came into my life. God sent to me, dropping seeds, and someone very close to me and special cared enough to sit me down and introduce me to Christ. And I was baptized in the Church of Christ in 1992. Let's see, where do I go from there? I've participated in small groups in two separate congregations. This one, Marietta, as well as Church of Christ in Whidbey Island. Peter and I, my husband. And in this congregation, I assisted with co-facilitating the women's breakout small group of Celebrate Recovery for a couple years. So that's sort of my little bit of background on the spiritual piece for me. For the professional history, just in a nutshell, as Doug said, I do not know everything. Please don't expect me to know everything about psychology or anything else in life. But I have spent many years studying. So I have an undergrad in social psychology. I have 2 masters in psychology. I have a recent received doctorate in psychology. And I'm licensed as an LMFT, licensed marriage and family therapist here in California. I'm licensed as a mental health counselor in the state of Washington. I'm currently working towards licensure to become a clinical psychologist. So that is kind of the history of my studies. I have independently and co-facilitated many groups within the therapy setting. So that's just a little bit about me. If you can go to the next slide. So today, these are the objectives. These are the things that we will be discussing. I'm hoping to answer each of these 4 questions this morning. We have about 25 minutes. And during that time, I'll be presenting some information to you all, and I'm wanting us to have brief discussion around it, and of course be able to answer any of your questions or address any concerns you may have. So what is group work? Some of this information may be very familiar to you all. Some of it may be brand new. We know that working in groups is nothing new, as Doug talked about in the worship service this morning. It is historical. Christians have been meeting in homes for centuries. We meet together to pray, to commune, to worship, to do all of these things, to support each other. When we are out in the world, when we hear group work, I don't know about you, maybe it's me because of my background, my mind automatically goes to like a therapy thing, mental health. Oh, what kind of help are you getting? Well, I just want to point out and make it very clear, as you all know, meeting as Christians in a group is not therapy. Group work is not, it is not therapy. And group work is not limited to the therapy setting. I'm not going to be up here this morning talking to you or training you on how to become therapists, but there are certain dynamics. There's very particular behaviors that have been studied over the years, have been shown evident to come out within the group setting. When human beings gather in groups, there are certain things that occur. And so we just want to highlight that and talk about that this morning. There are some scriptures I put up here for your pleasure, for you all to meditate on, maybe reflect back on. You can read over later. There are a few scriptures that my darling husband in the back room helped me pull out to connect with what we're talking about today. Okay? All right, so these are some basics about groups. I love how my picture kind of connects with what Doug was saying this morning. I feel like it does. So we're wanting to learn about some of these things, discuss some of these things, review some of these things, to keep in mind that we're all progressing, right? We're all wanting to progress forward. We're all trying to move forward. There are no perfect groups. There's no perfect scenarios. There's no perfect people. But we're all striving to grow in our relationship with the Lord, to strengthen our personal relationship. So some of the basics that we see when we look at group dynamics, group behaviors, within the initial stage of a group, what you'd want to do is make sure every member of that group is oriented to what is happening. What are we gathering for? What is the purpose? Why are we all here? You, of course, want to welcome them. You want to make sure everyone feels welcomed. But the orienting them, understanding what are the group goals, and keeping in mind that each person will have a personal goal of why they are participating in a small group. The overall group goal is important, extremely important and essential, and it's important for each individual to have something that's moving them towards becoming involved in a group. So this initial stage, as individuals come into your existing group, because if you're a newly formed group, of course, everyone's kind of new, right? So you can orient everyone at the same time. Well, as you have individuals enter into an existing group, you're going to want to be sure to orient that person who's coming in a little bit later. Make sure they understand the goals, make sure you understand, or the group understands what their individual goals are. They may want to share this with the group, they may just want to share this with the group leader as far as their personal goals. The middle stage, this is what I call the working stage. The initial stage, you're going to be building trust right off the bat. You're going to be establishing trust. Now, the middle stage, you're going to want to build on that trust, that established trust. You're going to want to be working towards the goals. This is what I call the meat of the group. You're going to be actively working on the topic of study, actively working on prayer, actively working on strengthening each individual and the group as a whole towards the goal of evangelism, bringing souls to Christ, getting to know deeper relationship with God. The final stage, I just called it final stage because it kind of went in line with initial, middle, final. But really, final stage of group in what we're doing and our purposes, there really is no final because the group is ongoing. And so I like to think of the final stage as you're consolidating what you've learned on whatever the topic is at hand. So you're not ending the group, you're just going to be moving on to another topic. But before you move on, you want to make sure whatever was learned is processed and consolidated, everyone understands, and they're actually doing something. It's an active role that everyone has. No one's just sitting there passively and you're moving on, if that makes sense. This is fluid. This is not rigidly set. You may find this meat portion kind of hanging out down here. And keep in mind, I just wrote final. It's not the end stage. Okay? Any questions on this before I move on?
About how long does it take for the initial stage to take place?
Yeah, great question. We're going to be breaking down needs of the group in a little bit of time here, but how long does the initial stage take? That depends on your group. If you have an existing group where you all know each other and that trust is already established, then you maybe can move right in, do a little kind of introduction, orienting the person to the topic of study and kind of move forward. If you're a new group and you don't know each other too well, you don't hang out, you only see each other on Sunday, hey, Sunday, then you're going to want to spend some more time on building that, establishing that trust within the group. And keep in mind, the establishment of trust building is ongoing. So it may take 2 groups, it may take 3 groups. Doesn't mean that you can't start your lesson just means that you want to make sure everyone's on the same page and everyone's comfort level. Not that they're comfortable being in a group, but that they're comfortable with what's happening in the sense of understanding that this is an active role, this is the information we have, that they're bringing it in. They're understanding what's going on. So you don't have any one person that feels like they're on the outside of the group. Did that answer your question? Okay, you're welcome. Can we go to the next slide? Okay, meeting groups needs. I do have a handout for you all for this one, if you don't mind Doug handing those out. It says meeting group needs on the top. So we're gonna go over the handout, and these are some of the things that we're touching on within the handout. Establishing trust. Let me get my handout. Establishing trust, leader as an active participant, active listening, group feedback, and balancing structure within the group. So what does it mean? And this handout, again, let me reiterate, what we're talking about this morning, me standing up here, this is not group therapy. But these are terms, these are things that the field of psychology has taken and studied. You know, many people within the field have studied over years. And so the dynamics that we point out, the things that we're saying are happening, it's all based off of some research that's been done. I know because of my personal experience that sometimes when we talk about psychology within the church, some people don't care for that too much. But let me just say, psychology, only the meaning of that means the study of human behavior and the brain. And so we're looking at this in a way of understanding human behavior when we come together in a group, as opposed to just one person individually. So what does it mean to establish trust? You want to make sure no one's going to come to your house and automatically trust you with their life. That's just probably not going to happen, right? Especially if they haven't spent any time with you, they don't really know you too well personally. Establishing trust means that you are building in your small group an environment of safety. You're helping people to come together to be able to feel safe in the room, safe emotionally, safe physically. You know, of course, we don't expect anything physically to happen, but emotionally, to be able to sit, to talk with you, to open up, to be vulnerable. When we can be vulnerable as human beings with each other, it actually builds our connection, but it is very, very difficult. I don't know if any of you have ever been in a position where you've had to be vulnerable when you really didn't necessarily want to, but you needed to push through that. And then, as you may have found, because I don't know the exact numbers, but maybe 90% of the time, if you're able to be vulnerable with someone and it's genuine, that person, chances are, they're going to return it with some vulnerability. And then you're going to have a deeper connection. So let's look over the handout. Creating a safe environment. I'm not going to read this whole thing because that's why I printed it, so you all can have it and kind of read over it later. But you want to first and foremost, you want to respect the privacy of others. I have actually seen this happen. I'm not going to say what small group, but I've seen this happen where people come into the group and they have the respect. They don't mean to put other people's business out there. They don't mean to talk about things that are private. They're maybe doing it in a way of wanting to gather prayers for this person or support them, right? Well, we need to remember that coming into the group, everyone sort of has an invisible expectation of what their privacy level will be. So you just want to make it explicit. You want to make it clear. You want to be transparent about what's private in the group, what's confidential, what's going to remain in the room. I heard someone recently say, well, yeah, small group, so what happens in small group stays in small group. Well, personally, I don't like that term because it comes from the Vegas commercial. and automatically my mind goes to this place of, oh, you're talking about like some dirty little secret. So this is not a dirty little secret. This is not like, oh, we need to be so secretive. What it is just understanding that some information that's disclosed in small group setting, that person who's disclosing it, they may feel very, very comfortable with the people in the room because they've gotten to know you. There's trust there. And they're asking for prayers, they need the support, but they don't necessarily want the entire church congregation to know about whatever they've just shared. So I think just being clear, talking with your group members about what will be confidential, what will be private, and what will not. One way of doing this, if you look at your worksheet, at the bottom of that first section, I put this could be an icebreaker initial group activity. So one of the questions you could ask your group, in what ways do you, what helps you build trust? What helps you have trust with another person? In what ways as a group can we come together and honor God with the information, the things that we're talking about here today? And you can get some feedback. Find out what your group members think about that, what they want to do with that sort of thing. There will be some house rules, I understand, that will be coming from the elders, which will address more of this topic. So if you look at the next one, leaders and active participant, what this basically is talking about are leaders understanding your role as leaders and not being in the passive position, but understanding that you're there to facilitate, you're there to lead, and you're there to participate. So you are a part of the group. When we're going to talk in a few minutes about challenges and how to respond to those things that come up in group that can be difficult, we need to remember that no one operates in a vacuum. Whatever is going on is that person, it's that individual, it's that individual's background, it's the leader, it's their relationship to the leader, it's other people in the room, and it's the relationship they have with other people in the room, and whatever's going on in the environment. And so this is a huge responsibility for the leaders of the group. Again, I'm not gonna read through this whole thing because you all have it to look over. So if you look on the back, active listening. Active listening can be a whole day of training. It is so involved. It is. I don't know about you all, but I have all this experience in psychology. I have all this experience sitting with people and connecting with them every day. And there are times where I still struggle to actively listen because sometimes my mind just wanders. Someone's talking to me and it's like, I'm not really listening that carefully, right? So it is a skill. It is something to develop. It is something to work on. Listening requires not only the verbal that's coming in through your ears, there's the nonverbal, there's the visual, there's how you're positioning yourself, there's the eye contact, there's the cultural piece that come into this. Some people from different cultures, depending on your culture, don't like direct eye contact. It means something different. It doesn't mean they're not listening to you. They may not want you to give them direct eye contact. It might not be totally comfortable. Doesn't mean they're not listening. So when we're in a small group setting, we want to make sure we're practicing effective, active listening, that we're actually tracking what people are saying and what they're doing. Yes?
We got different handouts. We don't have the same ones.
Oh.
But Ken's more privileged than I am.
There's some over there. There's actually a different handout of challenge. We're going to be going over the challenge one, so if you have that, you want to keep that as well. Okay. So the last sentence on here is take a moment to digest what is being said and ensure that you're fully understanding before responding. So that is something to kind of keep in mind. Sometimes we are listening to people and we can't wait to get in what we're saying. I'm guilty of this myself, especially with Peter. He's back there nodding, yes, yes. So we just want to take a moment to actually listen to what the person is saying. Listening to someone doesn't mean you're agreeing with them. I'm finding, so I may be telling my age a little bit, but I am not a millennial. So I am finding that with the millennials, and this is not to attack the youth, but I'm finding that sometimes there's this idea of, oh, you're listening to me. That means you support what I'm saying. That means you agree with me. It doesn't mean that. It means you're listening. You're helping a person to feel heard. You're actually taking in what they are saying and processing it so that you can give them feedback or respond or do whatever needs to be done in the moment. Listening doesn't mean you have to be talking. It means you're using your ears to listen. Does anyone have any questions about this handout? Okay, I'm just going to briefly go over the last two. Group feedback is very, very important. Group feedback will not always be positive information. Sometimes you may get some negative information. And by feedback, I mean the members of the group, rather individually or as a group, have come to you, the leader, and they've given you some feedback about what's happening in those moments. Whether it's something good, they like it, they're having a great time, or something not so positive. Hey, this is hard for me, this is difficult, I'm noticing this coming up, what have you. Take all feedback as valuable information. Whether it's negative or positive, it is valuable. It is going to help you do whatever shifts, whatever changes you need to do within the group to build your group and make it stronger. And then the last one here, balancing group structure. I understand there will be additional structure to the small groups. We just want to make sure we're not overly structured. Everyone has their own personality. You're going to take the information and you're going to deliver it in a way that's matching to your personality. We want to make sure we're not rigid. And by rigid, I mean there's no flexibility, there's no movement, it's just overly structured. That's not going to help. That's not going to help your group kind of progress together. We do need some structure. Can't just be we all come in and, woo, how was your day? Okay, that's what we're talking about today. And we need to be focused. We need to be focused on the topic at hand, focus on why we're there, focus on the importance of being there. And we need to make sure that we are not so tied to the structure that we can't make room for anything else. Okay, any other questions before we move on? Okay. Yes.
I was going to say, I think the good thing about the small group is when one of your members does come and has an issue that they need to talk about their day, it's the small group is able to kind of adjust and take care of that one person and be more personal with each other.
Absolutely. And that is going to grow trust. That's going to bond your relationship. The person bringing the information, they may be the type of person or so comfortable where they have no problem with confrontation. And by confrontation, I don't mean fight. Confrontation means that you're confronting someone on something, right? You're bringing something forward. So that may be so uncomfortable for the person who's speaking up that it's just unbearable. They may not even say anything. So if someone has the courage to come to you and say, this, can we look at this, or can we talk about this, or I'm having a difficult time over here with whatever they're bringing to the table, we want to stop and listen to that. Again, active listening doesn't mean we're agreeing with them, but it does mean we're taking the time to listen and let them know that they're heard. And then we're going to try to move into maybe problem solving or looking at what type of solutions can be given. And the group members will help you. Once you establish your group and there's trust in that group and those relationships are built, they will help you. It will not always stay all on the leader. Okay, responding to group challenges. This is the next handout that we have. So again, we see some group themes based on research. Before we dive into this handout, I just want to point out that when I was putting this handout together, this was my experience. So I don't know if you all will have this experience or something similar to it. When we see labels, sometimes it automatically comes to our brain as a negative, like, oh, I'm talking negatively about someone, or I'm attaching some sort of negative label to someone. Please keep in mind that these ideas on the sheet, these are things that have been studied and identified into these categories. It doesn't mean anything negative per se about the person. It is pointing out what you may see in the group. So the first one here, the monopolizer. So I'm not going to read the sheet. I'll leave that for you all to read over later or now. But the monopolizer, that would be a person within the group setting who they talk nonstop. They're just going and talking. They're very, very talkative. They may even engage in such a way where it makes it very, very difficult for anyone else in the group to get a word in edgewise, to be able to engage themselves or ask questions or talk about however is hitting to them personally, the information. The person who's behaving in this way, we want to understand that this can be brought on by anxiety. That person may be feeling particularly anxious. They may be feeling, not that you need to, again, treat them or give them therapy, but just understanding where they're coming from. There may be a sort of sense of need for control in the room. They may feel a need to, maybe back at home they're not being heard. Maybe they're in a situation where they live alone, they don't have very many people to talk to, or maybe they have their family member, their loved one who is not able for whatever reason to engage with them too much. So they come to small group and they just can't stop talking, right? Well, you want to make sure that if you have this situation come up in your group, as the leader, you want to nip it in the bud. You want to nip it in the bud. You want to stop it and redirect it right away. You don't want it to keep going on. If it goes on and there's underlining little things done to try to stop it, that's not very explicit, you may find that's what we call passive aggressive behavior, first of all. And the outcome from that is going to be some possible hostility in the room. You may find other group members getting aggravated and frustrated, and it just will not be a positive outcome. So how do you stop it? Well, before I give my suggestion, anyone in the room have anything that have you had this experience? Have you had a way that you've actually worked to stop someone who's doing this type of behavior? Yes.
The leader will tend to be good at redirecting and getting back on task.
Yeah.
They're tough, but the leader takes control of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
The military really tell them to stop.
Confront them, tell them to stop. Yeah.
They have to take a breath. So when there's a breath, say, now let's segue that into what we're doing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Isaac?
The easiest thing I found is just to let them know that their comments are appreciated and ask them to allow you to deal with that at a later time so that we can stay on topic.
Yes. So all of what you just said, confronting them, the leader taking an initiative, taking an active role of stopping it, as Mickey said, waiting for them, finding that room when they take a breath. Doug?
It's real important to affirm that person, because if you just shut that person down, everybody else will shut down.
Yes. Yes.
So it's very important to affirm them. Sometimes I've done just interrupting with a positive comment. That's a good point you make. Mm-hmm. And redirecting.
Absolutely, absolutely. You don't sorry, you don't want to just say stop. I know that works in the military, but one way you can use that stop is, let me just stop you right there. What you're saying is really important, and we all appreciate, your feedback, you engaging here and giving us this information. And in the interest of time, we're just going to kind of circle back around to what we're want to be focused on today, or tie it in, like I think Mickey said, or Isaac said, tie it in to what you're talking about. It needs to have a tie-in. If someone's just on a tangent, let's just be transparent about, hey, as a group, I think we've gotten off on a tangent. Let's get back over to what we're focused on.
Do it in love.
And in love. Everything needs to be done with love. Everything should be done with a focus on why we're there, to honor God, and how would God have us handle this. It does take, I don't personally like confrontation, although some people who know me think I like it. I do not like it. But I push myself to do it in an assertive way. Notice I said assertive and not aggressive, to be sure to whatever I'm trying to do to keep it moving. We don't have time to go over all of these. I'm just going to briefly hit on each one. The silent member, the boring member we have on here, the help rejecting complainer, and then the person who's having mental distress. So the silent member, just real quick, that's someone in your group who's not talking at all. That doesn't mean you have a quiet person who maybe speaks up every now and then. That means you have someone who comes to your group every single week and they don't say or do anything, and they are kind of a little bit removed from the group. This is a problem for that person. This is a problem for the group. You want to do what you can to reach that person. It can take some strategies, but you want to make sure everyone who's there is plugged in and no one's left on the outside of the group. Some people may struggle with this. Social anxiety is real. Some people have a problem being in a group. Some people have a problem speaking in a group. It can be just paralyzing. So we want to respect that, but we want to gently nudge them over time. And developing that relationship is going to help. Developing that trust is going to help because they'll develop the comfort to talk. The boring member, that doesn't imply that they're a boring person. That means that this is a person who is not able to be spontaneous. They get stuck on the minute details of whatever you're talking about, and they always play it safe. Whatever they're putting out is always what they think would be socially acceptable. So this person, you want to connect them to the experience. Whatever we're studying with God's word, how is this playing out in your life? What is the experience you're having with our Lord and Savior? That sort of thing. The complainer, help rejecting complainer, this is the person who, frankly, you might get a little annoyed by. This would be the person who comes to the group and they always have some exaggerated, really, really difficult problem. This is not an everyday problem. This is an exaggeration where the focus is really self-centered on that person and in the way that they're delivering the information. And whatever help you as a leader or the group members give, they're going to reject it. They're not even going to entertain it. They're just going to reject it. Oh, that wouldn't work for me. Oh, that's not going to work. But yet they still have the problem. So this is what we call help rejecting in the field. And so for that person, if you know that this is the case, what you'd want to do is first identify what is help needed and what is help, what do they need and what do they just want to talk about. And then you also want to kind of look at not feeding into that. So maybe going alongside them of, this is really a hard problem. This is so hard. This is so overwhelming. We can't seem to find a solution. I don't know what we're going to do. What do you think we should do? That sort of thing. And this is a person you may have to consult with the elders about if it keeps coming up every week or keeps being a difficult thing in the group. The last one here about someone having a mental health crisis, I don't care who you are. If you are a human being with breath in your body, there is a chance that you can experience a crisis. There could be sudden loss. There could be something tragic that happened in your life that you've experienced. There could be all sorts of things that would come up and affect you. And maybe you decided, I'm still going to go to group today. And so you show up, but you're not able to function. So that person, if you run into that, you want to First of all, if someone's approaching you and letting you know they're having a hard time, you want to listen to that. And if someone is, as far as you all, again, not being trained to be therapists, but if someone is disclosing to you that they have some thoughts of hurting themselves, hurting other people, you want to consult with a mental health professional. You may have to consult with the police. You definitely want to consult with the elders. You want to make sure that they're safe and others around them are safe. If there's another situation going on that's not to that severity, you want to make sure you're still addressing it. Don't just blow it off. Go back to your elders and find out what are the church resources when things like this happen. I am available for consultation. My number's in the bulletin. My email's in the bulletin, or not bulletin, the directory. My email's in the directory. Please know you can text me, call me, email me if you ever have a question. I'm not asking you to call me and say, I have this person, this is their name, this is their phone number. But if you ever have a question, you're not quite sure about a situation and it has to do with mental health, and you want to consult with a mental health professional, you can do that with me if you like. Any questions? We're out of time. Sorry I went over. Yes.
Not a question.
Yes.
But hope and a suggestion. I see this as something that's going to be ongoing, as far as each one of us as small group leaders. With all of these different personalities and all of these different scenarios, if we're going to grow as a group, that we come together from time to time and talk about what's happening in our group, so each group can get better, so that we can sort of feed off each other.
Yes. And, it's not up to me to say how much I'll be involved. If you all ever want anything from me that you think might be helpful, extra training on active listening, extra training on how to establish trust, extra information, doesn't have to be a formal training, extra information that you think might be helpful, the actual tangible how-to, tangible in the form of a piece of paper, this is how you do this. There's no cookie cutter. There's no formula per se, but there is information out there that would take longer than 20 minutes to present. Yeah. I hope this was helpful to you all today. I appreciate your participation and what am I trying to say? Active listening. Okay. You're welcome.
Walida, thank you so much. We do want to have ongoing sharing training sessions as we get into small groups. It's helpful to get together as a group and share strategies and so forth, because there are all kinds of people going to be in our groups, and listening and responding and helping to guide, we really want to accomplish something. The goal in these first groups especially is to become fishers of men, and that's what the material will take us through, and we will do some training very soon on the content, on the material that we'll be presenting. But it's important to know how to connect with people, because if you can't connect with people, you can never get the material across. So, Walida, thank you so much for helping with that.